I'm going to start with a question. Doesn't every child deserve a happy childhood? A happy education? Doesn't every child deserve a happy curriculum story?
Here I am, sharing a story that I never thought I would ever have the courage to share. As I go back in time, back to when I was a child experiencing my first school years, I don't hear chuckles of children whispering in class, nor do I hear laughter of children playing, or the echoes of jolly footsteps in school hallways. All I remember is how scared I was. Entering school was a big struggle for me and the whole family. My mornings were filled with tears as I was torn away from my mom and taken to that vast, cold, and scary place they call school. I always sat there in silence, quivering behind my desk, and waited for those hours to slowly and painfully pass by. For the first 3 years of school, I did go every day, but it left no impact whatsoever on me. My learning was minimal. As I refused to interact with the outside world, I received poor grades and was always considered a slow learner. It was only 30 years later that I found out that there was a reason behind my fear and my agony. My everyday morning struggles in childhood were actually called separation anxiety, and my isolation and feelings of alienation were basically due to social anxiety. At the age of 34, I was finally diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder and finally found the reasons behind all my struggles and challenges.
Sometimes I can't help wishing that my parents and the teachers who taught me back then were aware of what I was going through, were aware of the psychological disorders of anxiety. My childhood and youth were definitely going to be happier. This is why I'm here today, to shed light on how important emotional and psychological wellness is important in the classroom, how vital it is for every child's learning, and how teachers can be in some way psychotherapists.
Not all screams are loud, and not all disabilities are visible. A child with physical disability may be accommodated for easier and better within the classroom. Everyone in school is aware of their disability, and it's easier for them to receive the support they need. But those suffering from intellectual disabilities, such as anxiety, suffer in silence. They are treated as normal and expected to meet higher expectations, and they may not even receive the accommodations they need.
In the past, teaching practices were solely focused on instruction and knowledge. 30 years back, when I was in elementary school, teachers only played the role of instructors, strictly adhering to their plans of knowledge delivery, taking no account of the differences between the 30 students in their classroom. To them, they were all the same.
15 years ago, when I started teaching, it was starting to become common to have an autistic or a Down syndrome student in class who received the support and accommodations they required. But I had not witnessed any notice for students with OCD, anxiety, or even those who had certain phobias. Thankfully, nowadays, more attention is being given to emotional wellness. Awareness on mental and psychological disorders is becoming more common. Meditation and mindfulness is starting to be practiced in a few classrooms. According to the WHO, mental health conditions such as depression, anxiety, and behavioral disorders are major causes of illness and disability among young people. Worldwide, 10% of children and adolescents experience a mental disorder. The following anxiety disorders can make it difficult for children and adolescents to attend school, focus at school, and thrive within the classroom setting. Separation anxiety disorder, selective mutism, social anxiety disorder, panic disorder, agoraphobia, and generalized anxiety disorder. According to research, anxiety disorders occur early in childhood with the median age of onset of 6 years. These disorders lead to significant impairment in academic, social, and family functioning. According to the Canadian Mental Health Association, when it comes to mental illness, youth is a critical period. Most people living with a mental illness see their symptoms begin before the age of 18, which is the school age. Approximately 20% of Canadian youth are affected by a mental illness or disorder. And mental health issues and illness are the number one cause of disability in Canada.
So, what can teachers or educators do to help those students suffering in silence?
Practice kindness, love, empathy, and understanding with all your students. When I was 7 years old, my family decided to relocate to the Gulf, to UAE. It was a big move for me and my sisters, but for me, it was beyond overwhelming. Not knowing what to expect, I went to my new school, weighed down by fear and anxiety. But little had I known that this move was going to change my life for the better. I still remember Miss Frost, the first teacher who showed me genuine care and kindness. She always noticed my paleness and very cold hands. She often held them and rubbed them. She was the first who gave me enough confidence to emerge out of my shell, to start speaking and interacting, by praising me and celebrating my very small achievements. Her genuine love, care, and empathy was like therapy for me, to help me to overcome my fears and find trusting grounds to walk on. If you're a teacher, inform yourself with some of the common signs of anxiety disorders, like finding it hard to concentrate, not eating properly, getting angry or irritable quickly, using the toilet often, complaining of tummy aches and feeling unwell. It's also important to establish positive relationships with your learners. Be mindful that it is uncommon for children and adolescents with anxiety disorders to ask for help. Provide emotional support and allow for accommodations where needed. For example, encourage students to use self-calming or anxiety-reducing techniques that were taught by a counselor or a therapist. Allow students to have a self-calming object or family pictures on their hand. Build and call home breaks for students with separation anxiety. Let students seek help from a designated staff member with mental health expertise when feeling anxious. When dealing with anxiety, flexibility is very important. You might need to make modifications to your classroom setup, schedules, and routines to accommodate for students with anxiety. For example, you might need to allow some students to sit where it's more comfortable for them, perhaps beside a friend. Assign students a designated buddy for lunchtime, recess, or hallways who can make them feel better. And you also might need to give notice in advance of any changes in the routine or if a substitute teacher is going to come into the classroom. When giving instructions and assignments, you need to clearly state or write down classroom expectations and consequences. Break down assignments into smaller chunks. Offer students choices in presenting their work, whether verbal or written. Prepare students well before they are called upon to speak in front of the class. It's very, very important when dealing with anxiety that there are no surprises, so you need to give notice of upcoming tests or quizzes. And finally, And one last tip, a very important thing to keep in mind is never to judge a student based on their behavior. You need to always dig for the reason behind the odd behavior. Mental illness is often the reason behind bizarre behaviors.
Yes, teachers can be psychotherapists simply by practicing active listening, emotional support, and genuine compassion.